One thing I don't normally do on this channel is discuss my personal life. It's not because of any rule or because I'm a private person. Anyone who's seen my streams knows I'm happy to discuss details about my day-to-day and who I am as a person. It's mainly because I don't feel anything usually happens to me that's interesting enough to make a video about. Recently, however, I made a post on Reddit, and like many posts on Reddit, it descended into some pretty shocking comments and a huge argument. The person arguing with me attempted to delete their posts, but unfortunately for them, years of getting into internet conflicts has trained me to screenshot early and often. Normally I wouldn't make a whole video about a random row with a stranger, but this time the subject is one very personal to me. Now, while I do enjoy using Reddit and getting involved in threads that interest me, I don't usually post outside of sharing my content. Lately though, I've been pondering a big life decision that I want to make sure I've fully thought through, and so I, perhaps naively, decided to post in r/advice, if for no other reason than to keep the decision at the forefront of my mind. This is the post I put up. Considering a vasectomy so my kids don't have to go through what I went through. I'm almost certain I want kids one day. It's something I've wanted most of my life. However, lately I've been pondering the importance of those children being biologically mine. For some information, I'm 25, male, and currently single. I also have diagnosed Asperger's syndrome, ADHD, anxiety, and depression. Asperger's has a very high chance of running in the family, and my mother and sibling both show very strong signs of it, though neither has been formally diagnosed. And there is a strong history of neurodivergent behaviour on my mother's side of the family. I have nothing against the idea of raising a disabled child and believe that at the point where I'm ready for parenthood, I'll also be ready for additional challenges. But the thing is, I know what I went through. I know the times I've suffered, the pains I've felt, and the regrets I have that come as a direct result of my disability. I know the experiences I missed out on and the opportunities I've lost. While I'm comfortable in myself and happy in my life now, I still have memories of darker times. I still have bad days, and I've been thinking, do I really want another person to have to go through this? If I could have chosen before I was born, I would have chosen an easier life than what I got. I would have chosen to not have the same difficulties and obstacles. This is obviously a huge decision, which is why I'm putting real thought into it, and I want to hear the advice of others in the hopes it may help. So what do you think? Is it justifiable to get a vasectomy so that I never force a child to experience what I have? As you can see, this isn't just some casual choice for me to make, and I genuinely wanted to hear the opinions of others, whether in agreement or otherwise, as it would help me to reach the conclusion that is best for me. The majority of responses were people agreeing and supporting my decision, with one that disagreed. I was happy at first to see the disagreement, as it could provide a different perspective to the rest of the thread, but little did I know this was the tip of a crazy iceberg. You do realise that every single human being has their own flaws and goes through hardships, right? No one has a flawless existence, and if anyone ever did, it would be deeply sad, because without bad, there's no concept of good. Without pain and sadness, there's no concept of pleasure and joy. You do not have any conditions that are guaranteed to be passed on genetically, and people who do not have the conditions you have still have children who do. Your donor sperm can result in a child with far more issues than you have, and an adopted child may also have far more issues than you have. Instead of focusing on permanently making yourself unable to procreate, maybe try to focus on accepting yourself and not dwelling on your past so much. You're hoping for something that is unrealistic and not even the good thing you're thinking it would be. This immediately read as pretty aggressive and confrontational, but there was truth in it. My child inheriting my disabilities would not be a guarantee, and having a child with disabilities can happen to anyone. However, my issue wasn't with raising a disabled child. In fact, I'd love to put my experiences to use raising a child with similar disabilities, but with being responsible for that child having a disability. The cringy use of the term procreate and the general aggressive tone gave me concerns, but I decided to persevere with the conversation, and it continued thusly. They do have their own flaws, but some worse than others, and there's a difference between someone being born with a condition by chance and someone actively increasing the odds of it happening. I also already said I'm comfortable and happy in my life. I have accepted myself, but I also acknowledge and remember the negatives as any healthy person should. I also don't think it's unrealistic to want to reduce the risks of my child having a disability that makes their life harder. So are you going to only date genetically perfect people? Because what if your future wife has problems or family history of problems? Will you encourage her not to have biological children? Your overall logic here is deeply flawed and troubling. My logic isn't flawed. The version of it you've created is. I'm talking about reducing the risks of my children having to live with disabilities that will make their life harder. I don't see the need to criticize someone who's lived their whole life experiencing disability for saying they wouldn't want someone else to have to deal with it. Your logic seems to be saying that bad things happen regardless, so we shouldn't take steps to prevent them. I was very much getting the impression that this person was not actually considering what I was saying, and that only began to feel more true as further replies came in. There are no known steps to take to prevent Asperger's, ADHD, or anxiety and depression. That's my point. There is evidence that shows autism has a tendency to run in families, and that parents with autistic traits have higher chances of having children with autism. So yes, there are steps, which is to not have children if you are autistic, which is what I'm talking about doing. This seemed to be an end to that line of conversation, but another person had entered, taking issue with the initial response to my post, particularly the line, "You do realise that every human has flaws and hardships." Yeah, but having a disability isn't just flaws and hardships. OP has Asperger's, ADHD, and anxiety/depression. These are not disabilities, they are flaws and hardships. If he had a rare, life-threatening genetic condition that is often passed down via the father, then I'd say sure, be responsible, be cautious, but that's not the case. People with Asperger's, ADHD, and anxiety/depression can lead completely normal, happy lives, as OP even admits he himself is doing. He's trying to protect his future offspring from life. I was genuinely speechless at this. To be so dismissive of serious disabilities that affect thousands of people the world over was shocking. I've heard a lot of hot takes about my disabilities in the past, but this was up with the top ones. Fortunately, Lidosia had some words for this. They are disabilities. It's true, many people with autism, ADHD, and anxiety/depression can definitely function well enough so that you don't notice their disability. Other people with autism, ADHD, and anxiety/depression are constantly crippled in life that they can't even leave their house or say a single word aloud. Just because OP randomly falls on one end of the spectrum and passes as neurotypical or whatever, doesn't mean his hypothetical child with autism won't fall on the other end of the spectrum and be barely functioning enough to ever take care of themselves. However, at this point in time, we have no scientific studies to support autism and ADHD being hereditary. They are genetic in the sense that they are in your genes and a mutation to neurodivergent brain happens in utero, but it doesn't mean there is a higher chance that OP will pass that neurodiversity down to his children. If there were reason to believe that he could, is a valid reason not to want biological children, in my opinion. As for you, please don't be ableist. Recognise that autism and ADHD are disabilities. To which this golden comment was made. You're the one being ableist, my dear. You're treating OP as if he has some horrible genetics and shouldn't procreate. I can't think of a way of being more ableist than that. This gave off real okay sweaty Karen energy that I couldn't help but laugh at. No one had said anything about whether autistic people should have kids or not, but whether it was right for me as an individual to do this. I wasn't attempting to make any general statement about disabled people having kids, but trying to find a solution that worked for me and my situation. Despite the amusement, I was still angry at the complete dismissal of my disabilities. Normally, I would simply leave this situation. I don't see the point of wasting energy on being offended. But that day was a slow day, so I decided that this time I'd allow myself a little offense as a treat and let the hate flow. How dare you dismiss my disabilities as just flaws and hardships? That's an absolutely disgusting thing to say. You have absolutely no idea what I've gone through or the struggles I've had. They are medically and legally recognised as disabilities, and the sheer ignorance you have to claim they're not is ridiculous. You describing mental illness as just life is akin to the people calling bullying character building. Go find someone with Asperger's who got so overstimulated at the thought of going outside the house that they're having a breakdown on the floor and tell them they don't have a disability, or someone who can't hold down a relationship or job due to their inability to communicate with others that it's just flaws and hardships. You're arrogant, patronising and bigoted, and there's not a drop of advice in your response, only criticism of someone else because they won't procreate like you think they should. This seemed to have hit home, as our responder decided to make their closing remarks before the previously mentioned dirty delete. You're taking issue with my word choice and ignoring the bigger point. Fine, have a vasectomy. I don't care if you procreate or not, but viewing yourself as tragically damaged and being unwilling to pass on your gene pool even though your disabilities are not genetic is still not sound reasoning. Is you thinking you are less than when you are not. Call me any name you want. You know nothing about me and are a stranger on Reddit, so your view of me means nothing to me. I'm trying to help you realize that you cannot prevent flaws and challenges in anyone, but you can keep twisting that and making me the villain all you want. I won't bother you anymore. Good luck and have a nice day. As I pointed out though, you literally tried to claim that officially recognised disabilities are not disabilities and tried to downplay them as just flaws and hardships. That's not twisting your words, that's exactly what you said. And that was the end of that conversation. It was a genuinely baffling series of events for me, watching someone get so heated over this, especially as they were seemingly getting angry at arguments no one was even making. In future, I'll likely think twice about discussing personal problems on Reddit. It's not all bad though. Lidosia, the other user to get involved, runs a Discord server for neurodivergent individuals and sent me an invite, which has led me to finding a cool new community to be a part of. She also gave me permission to use her comments and her Reddit name in case you were wondering, and there's a link to the server in the description below for other neurodivergents. I also got a chance to do some research and find some pretty fascinating studies on how autism occurs, weird trends related to it, and why it's classed as a disability. If you're interested in that, I'd highly recommend looking at the work of Simon Baron Cohen. Plus, on top of everything else, I got that one thing that YouTubers constantly hope for. Juicy content. I hope you enjoyed the video, though hopefully this will be the last of its kind I'll ever get to make. If you're interested in seeing my other content though, drop a subscribe and have a look around the channel. Check out my Twitch too. I stream 5 days a week and I'm happy to discuss practically any topic as long as it won't get me banned. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or Discord too. Links are in the description. Thanks for watching.